Hi everyone, and welcome to the Cora's Quilts YouTube channel, where it's my mission to help you make stunning quilts simply. If we haven't met before, my name is Shelley Cavanna. I'm a quilt pattern and fabric designer, and I write quilting books like the Barn Star Sampler. You can find my fabric, patterns, and books at your favorite local quilt shop or online at my website at corasquilts.com. You can also find us on most major social media platforms under the handle Cora's Quilts as well. Today's video is part of a 12-month quilt-along series where we'll be working through the 20 blocks in my Barn Star Sampler book. To sew along with us, you'll need your fabric and a copy of my Barn Star Sampler book. Each of these construction videos assume that you've already starched and pressed your fabric and that you've followed the instructions in the book to cut and label your fabric pieces. If you're looking for more information about this quilt-along program or my thoughts on pre-washing or starching your fabric, you can find the link to all of the previous videos in this series in the description box below. There are no specialty rulers or templates required for any of the blocks in the Barn Star Sampler. The majority of our blocks are made using my favorite stitch and flip techniques to eliminate triangles and bias edges whenever possible. With the blocks that do feature triangles, we'll be piecing our triangle units larger than needed and trimming them down to size, so you won't need to worry about foundation or paper piecing templates either. I'll share a full list of all of the tools used in this video in the description box below, but if you'd like my entire list of our must-have and nice-to-have tools, you can find that information in our Mise En Place video, also linked below. This month, we're finishing off the last of our 8-inch blocks with the Weather Vane Star and the Pinwheel Star. These are blocks 13 and 14 in your book. This video is focused on making the Pinwheel Star, but be sure to visit the link in the description box below for our Weather Vane Star tutorial. Earlier in this series, I shared my favorite piecing technique, the ever-versatile stitch and flip method. It's a fantastic way to make flying geese blocks and efficient 2-at-a-time half-square triangle blocks. This month we're going to be making some more half-square triangle blocks, and we'll take a look at another stitch and flip shape, the diamond. Taking a closer look at the anatomy of our Pinwheel Star, the block is assembled in quadrants. Each section is pieced with a square, a half-square triangle unit, and a left-leaning diamond unit. We covered the 2-at-a-time method for making half-square triangle units in depth in our Mosaic Star video tutorial. You can also find a standalone video tutorial in our brand new Quilter's Toolbox YouTube series. We've left the link to both videos below. As a quick refresher, we make our 2-at-a-time half-square triangle units by marking a diagonal line with a ceramic pencil on the wrong side of one of our squares. It's important to be careful to line up your pencil, not your ruler, in the square corners. Then we pin our squares right sides together as directed in the pattern and stitch a scant 1/4-inch seam on both sides of the marked line. After stitching, we cut the unit in half along the marked line and press as directed by the assembly diagrams in the book. Finally, with the help of the diagonal mark on our rulers, we trim our units down to size. For this block, we'll need a 2.5-inch unfinished half-square triangle unit. The second building block for our pinwheel star is a left-leaning diamond unit. And believe it or not, it's made almost identically to our stitch and flip flying geese, which we've been working with in some of our previous blocks. Really, the only difference is that we need to pay careful attention to the angle and placement of our stitching lines. For these units, I like to mark my stitching lines on the C and E squares before I pin them into place. We start by attaching our C square to the background D rectangle, and just like it's pictured in the book, we want the C square pinned to the left end of the D rectangle with the stitching line running from the upper left to lower right corner. Then simply stitch on the marked line. As with our other blocks, you can chain piece these units by taking a couple of stitches past the edge of one block and then immediately starting to sew your next block without cutting the thread in between the units. After you've finished attaching all the C squares, you could trim and press before coming back and attaching your E squares. But I like to save a little bit of time by actually attaching my E squares next and then doing all of my trimming and pressing in one fell swoop. Now, if you remember back to our flying geese block, when we attached that second square to the opposite end of the rectangle, we were attaching it so that our seam lines were perpendicular, or they crossed over one another to form the pointed end of the goose. This time, when we attach our E square to the opposite end of our D rectangle, we are making sure that our stitching line runs parallel or right alongside that first seam. And if you haven't trimmed your C square yet, be sure to flip its corner out of the way or you'll end up stitching over it as you attach the E square. Just like with our flying geese units, you'll trim the excess fabric a 1/4 inch away from each seam before carefully pressing towards the newly added corners. Once you've finished piecing your half square triangles and diamond blocks, you're ready to start assembling your block quadrants. You'll attach a C square to the right side of your half square triangle unit and press before attaching a diamond unit to the bottom. You'll want to take the time to practice some precision piecing here by matching the points where the half square triangle unit intersects the diagonal seam on the diamond unit. The quadrants are then sewn together into pairs before sewing the pairs together to finish the block. If you've followed the pressing instructions in the book, then you'll be able to spin the center seam, just like we did with our Ohio star. You'll pop open the few stitches above the seam line to loosen the corners before gently directing half the seam up and the other half the seam down and pressing. If you're uncomfortable with spinning the center seam, then you can absolutely press the seams joining the quadrants open. Just be sure to backstitch at the start and end of each seam so they don't come unraveled in your quilt top later. That wraps up our tutorial for the Pinwheel Star, or Block 14 in our Barn Star Sampler series. Be sure to check out the other tutorial for Block 13, the Weather Vane Star, which was also released today, and we'll see you next month with another exciting block. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Remember that you can share your quilt along progress photos over on Instagram using hashtag #BarnStarSampler, and be sure to tag us at Cora's Quilts so that we can see your photos too. And don't forget to grab your free Barn Star Sampler Quilt Along Block checklist. We've left a link to download it in the description box below. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Happy sewing, and we'll see you soon with another Barn Star Sampler tutorial.